Welcome to this week's episode of Drive the Bid, the automotive podcast brought to you by AutoHunter.com,
your destination for online collector car auctions.
Hosted by Diego Rosenberg and Derek Shiekhi. Drive the Bid starts now.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Drive the Bid podcast brought to you by AutoHunter.com. If this is your first time tuning in, I'll tell you a little bit about how the show runs each week. So we always start with covering automotive news. And here lately, we've been sharing memes that we found online or that we've made ourselves after that. And each week we have a new main topic. So this week we'll be discussing cool and not so cool clocks that have been found in cars over the years. And like we do every week, we'll end this show by sharing some of our favorite picks on AutoHunter.com that are available for auction right now. And speaking of AutoHunter.com, our sponsor, I'm going to turn it over to my co-host here, Luke, to tell you more about the site.
AutoHunter is great, guys. If you're looking for a great price on a vehicle and love the auction style of buying and selling a car, check out AutoHunter.com. It's our 7-day online auction platform with new cars listed every single day. So head on over to find the vehicle that's not only right for you, but at the right price.
Nice.
Thank you,
And
sir.
as I mentioned earlier, we're going to be sharing a few of our picks. So, you'll know what to look for. You might like those. So if you do, you can definitely place your bids on those.
I feel like we got some good ones this week.
Oh, we definitely do.
Cool.
Now, to change gears here to new cars, we're going to be discussing the new Chevy Silverado EV.
That's right. EV trucks, they're happening.
Yes, exactly. We're in a new age. Now, as we were talking about earlier, they already revealed this, but recently they shared more information about the two available trim levels, right?
Correct.
Currently.
I believe it's that's available in three different multiple specs.
Yeah, specs, but there's the first edition RST,
Yes.
and then there's the WT, but they have the different grades.
Correct.
in
There's
those.
the 4WT and the 3WT. Correct. And this thing, I mean, low key, it looks a little bit like an Avalanche, and it's quite expensive.
Yeah. So the top dog right now, the first edition RST,
Yes.
is mid-90s, right?
$94,500. Now, they're saying it can do everything a normal truck can do. I sure hope so for $94,000.
Yeah, and that's there's so many numbers associated with these, the charging times, the horsepower, obviously, which we'll get into, but two of the important specs, up to 10,000 pounds of towing and 1,500 pounds of payload.
That's right. So, we've seen full-size trucks that can do a little bit more than that, so it's not the most impressive thing in the world, but still does what a truck can do, which is nice.
Yeah. And then, of course, there's a bunch of technology baked into this. You've got available four-wheel steering. You got a 17-inch touchscreen, and then a large driver information display, and then a really expansive head-up display. I think it's, 14-inch? Layout for that. And then you had mentioned earlier the resemblance to the Avalanche. And then I think the Avalanche had this too, where you had that kind of mid-gate. So if you needed to extend cargo past what the bed could hold, you can fold that down and, increase your carrying
Yes, and I think
capacity.
the bed without that measures out to 5'11", so almost a 6 foot bed. So you're going to have plenty of storage space back there.
Yeah, and then you can also get that the multi-flex tailgate, so it's like kind of a Swiss Army knife of tailgates to make your carrying options a little more versatile.
Correct.
Now, we mentioned the different trim levels. Obviously, first edition RST, that's, the top dog, top dollar model. And then there's the WT models. So obviously, there's different output levels, different ranges for those.
Yeah, there's some different ranges. So the 4WT, if you opt for that one, you're looking at 450 miles on a full charge. That's not too shabby. In a world of EVs, a lot of the ones we're seeing have a range of like 230, 280 miles. That's nothing. So I do like the fact that for at least the 4WT, you can get some pretty decent mileage out of it. Now for the 3WT, you're looking at 393 miles of range. And for your top dog first edition RST, you're looking at 440 miles. Not too shabby.
Yeah, nice. I think that'll definitely come in handy. And I can imagine the WTs. I mean, my understanding is typically WT with the ICE models is more of like a work truck model.
Yes,
so
utilitarian, one could say.
Yeah. So more, I guess, relatively budget friendly. Certainly not going to be $94,000, but for consumers, it's one thing to have a lot of driving range, but I'd say it's makes even more sense for commercial users because, time is money in those cases. So they want to get as far as they can with as little recharging as possible.
Exactly. And speaking of recharging, they're claiming on their website 100 miles of range can be added in just 10 minutes of DC5 fast charging. So it's pretty quick.
Yeah.
You won't be standing at the electric pump for too long.
Yeah, I hope not. Yeah, just to, that's the trade-off with these is, just EVs in general. It's like, okay, the more of them there are, the more incentive there is to beef up and expand the infrastructure. But then in doing that, there's, I would say the intended consequence of having more vehicles using them,
Yep.
And there's an interesting stat with this. They said in regards to the first edition that it would provide access to 174,000 public chargers in the U.S. and Canada. Obviously that probably pales in comparison to the number of gas pumps, but that is a staggering number. I had no idea it was that high.
The infrastructure is growing. And if you're an EV lover, this is great news.
Yeah, exactly. It absolutely needs to. I drove a decent amount of EV test vehicles in the past several years, and my issue with those was never the vehicle itself. Obviously there's little things here and there. It's like, Mustang Mach-E. It's like, yeah, it's fast and everything. It looks pretty cool, but it's like you don't have the shift sensation since it's a single speed. And, obviously you don't get the growl of a V8. But aside from little things like that, my issue was always just the infrastructure.
100% agree with you. We've had 2 press cars now that have been fully electric. And we've said the exact same thing. These cars are phenomenal. They're fun to drive. They're smooth. So much power. But the biggest issue is charging the thing. First off, we were charging it roughly every day because those things weren't really made to be commuter cars. They didn't have the range that something like this had. We were looking at 200 miles on a single charge. So we were at that DC supercharger every day pretty much. And let me tell you, that gets pretty expensive.
Oh, yeah.
So, never really the car itself. It's just the infrastructure and the price. Unless you have a stage 2 charger installed at your home, you're probably going to be stuck at the supercharger. Yeah,
exactly. And, the thing is, with ICE car, it's like there's so many pumps out there, and it doesn't matter where you live, really. Unless you're in the absolute boonies or the mountains. But, with chargers, it's like, okay, if you live in an apartment, I used to live in an apartment. There was not a public, what do you call it? A public plug that I could use and just run out into the parking lot,
Totally,
right?
yeah.
And even when I used our friend Rachel's house, we parked an EV I was testing in her driveway overnight, and we were just using a wall plug, 120. Excuse me. Took forever. Pardon me. It took forever, and then we come back the next morning, it still wasn't fully charged.
No, you are looking at really long charge times to fully charge an electric vehicle with the stage 1 120 wall outlet. So it's like you're not really saving money when you buy an EV. That seems to be kind of a marketing scheme they're going for. Oh, it's electric, it's good for the environment, you must save some money, but not really the case.
Yeah, and that's one of those things. Any vehicle, you obviously have to consider your lifestyle, what you're going to use it for, what it can help you do, all these kinds of things. But that's typically not an issue in regards to fueling an ICE vehicle, but it definitely is with an EV. Or if you're in a rental house, if you're in a house but you're renting, you can't just say, oh yeah, I'm going to have a charger installed, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it only really works if you're commuting, if you're fortunate enough to have a stage 2 charger at your workplace, you know?
Yeah, which some people do. And, you know, it kind of highlights what an issue this is. I mean, even here, like we're in Phoenix. In Phoenix, you see Teslas all over the place. A lot of electric cars here. I think this is one of those states that is, I guess, more accommodating to EVs. But the fact that you've had these issues, you know, even in this city is not the best sign.
It's a bummer. I mean, it's a bummer. But I mean, I'm not the biggest EV guy, so it doesn't affect me too much. But only when we get the press cars, I'm just like,
yeah,
it sucks.
You have to be a little resourceful, you know, like you got to kind of, and that's the thing. It's like, I'm getting into a rant here, but like, you know, when I was testing them back in Austin, and Austin's similar to Phoenix in that way. I mean, I would say even more so.
I was going to say the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I'd say a very, in the grand scheme of things, a very EV friendly city.
A EV progressive type of city.
Yeah. And even then, you know, once again, the infrastructure caused a problem because I would go to a place and, you know, they would have 1 or 2 plugs, like a grocery store parking lot, right? They'd have 1 or 2 plugs and you'd get there and either one or both of them would be occupied.
Or broken.
Yeah, exactly. That's something that I ran into more here. It's like I had, it was a few years ago, as the EQS Mercedes.
Oh, yeah.
And I show up and, you know, the payment terminal, like if you don't have the charging company's app, then it's like, oh, okay, well, I'll just use my credit card. And that I ran into one of those cases where I tried to use it and then the payment terminal for that wasn't working. And then there would be like at least one of the terminals was broken. And then the ones that did work were occupied. It was just, you're at the mercy of so many different elements. Now, again, that's not bagging on this, but that is something to be considered. And that is a real problem, as you and I have discovered in testing EVs. I mean, that is definitely something to consider.
Definitely. But a little more cool facts about this thing. Let's jump back into it.
Rant over.
Yeah, rant is over. One really cool thing is the automatic adaptive air suspension. So you can actually raise or lower this vehicle 2 inches with just a few clicks of some buttons. Pretty neat.
Oh, nice. Yeah. And I mean, especially as big as new vehicles are, especially full-size trucks, you know, it helps to have like an ingress-egress mode.
Yes.
You know, like especially if you have, you know, a shorter passenger. Like my mom's very close to like 5 feet tall. So like when I was testing heavy-duty trucks, I mean, luckily, you know, they seem to have like running boards or steps or whatever, but it definitely helps. It accommodates more people that way.
And also, if you're towing things, you know, you can kind of get the vehicle where it's comfortable and where it performs the best by raising it or lowering it. So, yeah, I mean, great for getting people in the car as well.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I think we touched on the 4-wheel steering earlier. Yeah. That'll definitely come in handy for towing and all that.
It's going to make driving it way easier. I mean, it's a big truck. It's going to be a little more harder to control if it's your first time getting in something like it. But it's going to make the whole process just way more seamless. Another cool thing I wanted to talk about was the WT. It's estimated to have one of the lowest drag coefficients available for any production full-size pickup truck.
Oh, nice. Yeah. I mean, it certainly looks it. It's very sleek, you know, and then they've got, you know, obviously the filled in grill and everything. And, you know, one of the great things about going full EV is they could just do a clean sheet design. Like they didn't have to retrofit this into an existing framework.
You know, I'm going to say, though, I think it low-key kind of looks ugly.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. What do you think? It just looks so round and big and... I don't know what's happening.
It's pretty chunky, and then that kind of flying buttress looking element behind the cab, it kind of makes me think of the first generation Honda Ridgeline, just a little bit. Just a little bit.
I can see it.
And as we know, one of the people on our staff Dustin, not a big fan of the Ridgeline.
That's right.
But I think it's I think this is a pretty good looking truck. Now, what's staggering to me, and again, numbers, is I think the WT models, they have what is it, like 18 or 20-inch wheels, and of course the RST being top dog, 24-inch wheels.
Huge.
Absolutely massive. I mean, no matter what it's propelled by. And my logic is, oh well, you could probably squeeze more mileage out of the truck if it had smaller, lighter wheels, But, I guess they, I don't want to say tune's, I guess, not really the right word. But, obviously they've compensated with the output.
Correct.
I think the RST is like 754 horsepower.
If not more. It's in the 700s, either mid or a little bit higher. Plenty of horsepower. I mean, 0 to 60 time, 4.5 seconds.
Yeah.
Pretty impressive.
Yeah. And we were talking about this earlier. If I remember correctly, so keep in mind, this is full EV truck, so that means it's heavy. You get that giant Ultium battery pack and everything, and then those giant wheels, and then the heavy tires to go with them. Even though these look like street tires, I mean, just the sheer amount of rubber on there. A heavy vehicle, right? But they've given it so much juice, and then it's got the four-wheel drive system, front and rear motors, so it's got all four wheels to put the power to the road with. If I remember correctly, the C5 Corvette, and not even the Z06, just a regular C5 Vet, 0 to 60 time on that was 4.5 seconds. So yes, it's been 20 years, but the fact that a giant, heavy, full-sized EV truck can hit that time is just mind-boggling.
Yes, definitely. So it's capable. It's fast. It can tow, but just for me, the looks of it kind of turns me off. If I was looking for a truck, I probably wouldn't go for this.
Okay, well, that raises the question: Rivian, Lightning, or Cybertruck?
Okay, I'm gonna get flamed.
You're gonna get flamed no matter what.
Yeah, it's an EV. Pick your poison. I'm picking the Cybertruck purely on the fact it's so unusual. I'm a geek. Okay, I love this futuristic Star Wars, Star Trek, just design of it. I mean, it looks out of this world. It looks unrendered. It looks weird. I love it. I would totally go for it. If the Cybertruck was not a factor, I'd probably go for a Rivian. I think they're really cool. They're fresh. They got the headlights, a whole bunch of features that were pretty. They kind of pushed a lot of these new features that are being implemented into some of these EVs now. So they were kind of the first ones. I like those things. But honestly, if we're talking Rivian, I wouldn't even get a Rivian truck. I'd get the new RX-3 hatchback. I don't know if you've seen that. That thing hasn't been released yet, but unbelievably cool.
Oh, okay.
R3X maybe, something like that. It's so cool.
Yeah, I vaguely remember. Yeah, because it came out. I guess they released images of it. I don't know, a month or two ago, something like that.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. So now, it'll be interesting to see on social media the public's response to this, and one way in which would-be consumers respond to new vehicles is by releasing memes. Like a few years ago when they released the new Silverado, people were goofing on the grill and they said it looked like a men's razor, all that kind of stuff. So I'm sure the memes for these are gonna be coming out. Speaking of memes, we have 4 coming your way. So Luke found some online that are funny. I generated a couple myself. I'm hoping those are funny as well. So let's get into those. All right. I resisted the urge to look at this beforehand.
Right, this one says, so that's where my college fund went.
Totally worth it, Junior.
Totally. I mean, look at that.
You'll be getting this one day. This is my legacy to you.
That's the best college fund I could have ever asked for. Let me tell you. That is beautiful.
Yeah, man.
But I saw this one and I was like, this is too funny. I have to put it up here.
Yeah, I like it. It's short, sweet, to the point.
Great job,
Easy
Dad.
to understand. Yeah. All right.
All right, what's next?
Yeah, so I think both of yours are, yeah, there we go.
All right, this one says, why Mustang owners think people are scared of their car. The real reason people are scared of their car.
Okay. Yeah, more gold. I like this. Yeah. Don't be deluded.
That's right.
Yeah.
I mean, all right, Mustangs are great cars. I'm not throwing shade, but they tend to lose traction, especially when they see a crowd. So,
Yeah. Well, it might be operator error.
oh, it's 100%. It's 100% operator error. I mean, you put a 5-liter V8 pushing like mid 430 horsepower into a relatively affordable muscle car. This is gonna happen.
Well, especially when you have somebody who, everybody at one point in their lives has gotten a little too excited. I get it. But then I think there are people out there, they have a powerful car, they look cool, they look tough, the car looks cool, and they think, I guess subconsciously, they just assume that translates to driving ability.
Yeah.
And it doesn't.
You know what? I have a story. This just reminded me. When I first got my 392, I was picking up my friend, and we were just going for some drives. We're about to get on the freeway, and I was like, yo, you want to see this thing drift a little bit? Because that 392, man, you barely touch the pedal, you're sliding. So we're going on the on-ramp. I'm like, check this out. I go to drift. I basically do a full 360 on accident, and I'm like facing the wrong way. It was so embarrassing, but it's just like, I was that person. I've been there. So
It does happen.
yeah.
But
I learned my lesson though. And,
exactly. That's the
it will
important.
never happen again, especially in my Jeep that's super underpowered.
Yeah, no worries there.
No worries there.
Oh man, yeah, it does happen. It does happen. Let's see. So, I think you'll appreciate this one,
All right, let's
being
see
a
it.
Jeep guy. So, I got a picture of an XJ Cherokee Briarwood, and it says at the top, 30 plus years old, tends to overheat, doesn't have Bluetooth, still more desirable than a Renegade.
I don't know who is buying a Renegade. They've got to be not real people because those cars are terrible.
Well, pretty soon, if they aren't already, those are going to be not real cars because they're in production of those.
Good. It's about time.
You're going to be dancing on the grave.
I know. I mean, they're like just plasticky. Who knows what the real purpose is for them? Maybe some subtle off-roading, but trail rated my butt.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of those where obviously they want to, with that in terms of size and price, obviously they went down market because they want to bring in, customers that might not have money for a Compass or a Grand Cherokee.
Well, then Jeep lower your prices, please, because 80 grand for a brand new Wrangler is insane.
Yeah,
They've got their heads on backwards.
and it's one of those things like you look at markup and it's like ADM, it's nuts to me, but it's like the reason dealers charge it is people pay it.
I can't believe it. I know.
So it's like, and then you got to stay in business, turn a profit. So it's like, okay, well, if people are paying for this, we'll just keep doing it. Like it's good for business.
Yep.
I understand I understand the basic economics of
Yes,
it.
totally. It just
Doesn't mean I like it.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And, but I think sometimes, and I get the financial mechanics of it, but I do think there is a point at which certain manufacturers go too far down market. Like you look at it used to be like Mercedes vehicles were either like 4-wheel drive with G-Wagon or rear-wheel drive or all-wheel drive, right? Like format, right?
Yeah.
But then they started making a lot of front-wheel drive Mercedes and then, BMW even. And I know, the faithful, the hardcore people were probably not too...
That's not a Mercedes.
Yeah, they weren't keen on that, And of course they do it, but especially those brands, those are aspirational purchases. So people out there that are, they can maybe squeeze a $35,000 car and they want the status. Oh, I want a Mercedes. Oh, there's a $35,000 Mercedes. I'm there. That way I can say I have a Mercedes, So I get it. But, then you look at the output and it's like, the power's not there, the materials,
Things
the
go
features.
bad, things don't work properly.
Yeah,
because it hasn't been in production long enough for.
Well, yeah,
Yeah,
that
feel
can
it.
happen, but I mean, even if it's been out a little while, it's like you're in like I was in a BMW X, I think it was an X3 several years ago, and it was 50 grand. It was like champagne color, drab color. Not a lot of power, didn't feel especially athletic. It didn't even have an adaptive cruise control. And obviously it wasn't equipped that way. You can get it that way, but I'm like, it takes something away from the mystique of the brand when you go to a certain point that's so far down market.
Completely.
It's just like, okay, yeah, it's got the badge, but what makes this special at this point, and like the Renegade, obviously that's not like a luxury. Well, Jeep is kind of a quasi luxury brand these days based on the prices. And then like you look at how nice like a Grand Wagoneer.
I was going to say Grand Wagoneer, super nice, luxurious, spacious.
Yeah.
The Wrangler, I don't know. Or even the Renegade. It's like, it's a versatile vehicle.
Yeah, and I mean, they're even luxing up the Wranglers a little bit. Like you can get like the Napa leather and certain specs and this and that. But the Renegade, it just feels. It's been a while since I've driven one, but yeah, they're so small. They just look kind of dinky.
I drove one maybe a year ago, and yeah, I was rinkety dinkety. Wasn't too big of a fan. I didn't even like the throttle at all. It just felt sluggish, slow, and like I wouldn't want to take it off-roading. Yeah.
Well, that was an issue even with the Compass. Like they had that 2.4 liter, what is it, like multi-air or I want to say Tiger Shark, but anyway, I mean that was, I guess the level above the Renegade, and it was one of those things. It's like, okay, yeah, it looks nice. I took one off road, it did pretty well, but yeah, just no power.
No power.
But anyway, so that's my little rant
good.
on the Renegade.
That's a beautiful Jeep up there.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Wood grain. Is that, I'm guessing, vinyl?
Yeah, it's it's just wood grain look vinyl. But yeah, this is pretty relatively rare. I think they only made these 2, maybe 3 years, because before these, like late 80s, they had the Wagoneer the XJ Cherokee Wagoneer Limited, and those had the stacked headlights, and then those had wood grain, faux wood grain on the sides. And then when they got into the early 90s, maybe 91, maybe 92, they had the Briarwood, and yeah, pretty short-lived in the grand scheme of things, because the XJ itself went from 84 to 01.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is that's on my list of Grail vehicles.
Oh, totally.
And then, so this next one, I've seen a couple of cases of this in real life. It shows a guy driving a Bentley, and I superimposed a smartphone in his right hand.
Great job.
It says, smart enough to make the money to buy a $300,000 Bentley, doesn't know it has Bluetooth. In a couple of instances, I've seen people driving late model Bentleys here in the Phoenix, Scottsdale area, and they were on a handset as they drove. I'm like,
don't you got wireless Apple CarPlay?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, join the 21st century. It's not a Turbo R from the 90s, I don't know what the logic is there. If they just didn't bother, or if it was like a friend's car, I have no idea. But it's like, you realize, among other things, I mean, this is a $300,000 luxury car.
They bought the car because it looks cool and it's a status statement.
Yeah, but it's like they're kind of, in that little way at least, they're like, to me, one of the definitions of luxury is not having to do certain things. So in this case, not having to hold your phone. And they just were not indulging in that. I don't understand why. All right. Well, so we've got a couple new memes out there, a couple of classics. So now it is time, pun intended.
Let's do it.
To get into our main topic, which is cool and not so cool cars that we found that have been in vehicles over the past several decades. So I think, you are up first, Luke.
You know what kind of vehicle that is right there?
Bel Air.
Beautiful 1955 Bel Air. Now, for 1955 through 1956, you could get this awesome, gorgeous, well-crafted analog clock. So let's go to the next photo. Absolutely gorgeous. From the housing to the font to just the watch face itself, it's just beautiful. Now, they were only in, I think, the Bel Airs for just those 2 years. I love how it just matches the aesthetic of the vehicle. And what's really cool about it is the dash incorporates it, Yeah. It's like they took the time to make something a statement piece. Yeah. And it just works so well with this vehicle. And that's just my pick. One of my favorites. The chrome, the black, the font. Gorgeous. What are your thoughts?
I agree with you, yeah. Because that's the thing. On one hand, a clock in a car is, basically another instrument. Like, you check the time, you check the oil pressure, whatever, right? But in a way, it's not the same because it's time. It's not, okay, is my car going to blow up or whatever.
Yeah.
Right? So I like what you were saying, and I agree with you. I like the fact that they put an emphasis on this, that it had its own place. It doesn't get lost in the array of the gauges, Mm-hmm. And then, it's a relatively simple, layout. It's not too ostentatious or too flashy. But what I really enjoy about this is, the shape and proportions and just the attachment of the hour and minute hands. Because certain clocks, obviously if they're of a certain size, they can have these long spindly hands, and it almost looks like a downsized grandfather clock. Mm-hmm. But this one, there's a little bit of emphasis or drama. Like, you've got the real short, wide, stubby hour hand, and then you got this nicely tapered minute hand, and then just the attachment point for it. I mean, even that seems decorative.
It looks 50s, man. I mean, it looks so clean and gorgeous. And, you think about it, I could be totally wrong with what I'm saying here, but back in the day, luxury features, there wasn't a lot of things really developed for luxury, and I think this definitely back in the day qualified as a luxurious amenity for a vehicle. It just looks so clean. Very, very cool.
Well, and a nice thing about this too is now obviously at speed it would be harder for the driver to see this, but if you got a passenger, they can
showing off to your friends, man. Come on in, check out my beautiful Bel Air, and look at this clock.
Yeah, and then they know the time, and then this is kind of a luxury feature. Instead of the driver checking for themselves, they can have their assistant.
Perfect.
Tell me the time. And then they got to check.
Honey, what time is it?
Yeah, exactly.
In that transatlantic accent. All right, but that was mine. Let's move on to another.
Yeah, so you're up again with this one.
Back. Talking about Bentleys. This is the amazing Bentley, I'm going to butcher this, Bentayga. You think that's right?
Yeah.
Bentayga SUV. Now for $230,000 extra, you can get a Breitling, and I will butcher this name again, a Mulliner Tourbillon. Mulliner Tourbillon? Something around those lines. Now, it is an actual mechanical Breitling that's in this vehicle, and it's pretty cool. It uses a mechanism that will spin the clock around 3 times every 15 minutes. But if that doesn't get you can press a button that will do it for you. So if you have passengers in the car and you want to show it off, push that button, watch it spin, show them your $230,000 extra option.
Good grief.
It's pretty dang cool, but do you think it's worth the price tag of $230,000?
Just that.
Yeah, I think there's one more image you can kind of see.
Oh, yeah.
Different angle.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you got the rotor back there, and the I hope I've got this right. The tourbillon, it's like this little cage that, if I remember correctly, like it moves with the watch. That way it keeps it accurate. Obviously it's decorative.
Hence the $230,000 price tag. It's going to be expensive for something like that with that kind of technology.
Yeah. Now, is this one of those? It doesn't look like it, but is this one of those where you can remove it from the vehicle and wear it?
Don't know. I want to say no, but I truly don't know the answer.
Okay. But yeah, that is quite a piece. I mean, if a Bentley is not flashy enough.
There you go. I know.
Which, I imagine there's tiers to it, because it's like, there are a lot of people out there with Bentleys, right? Mm-hmm. But there are some people that aren't going to almost double the price just to get this clock.
Totally. If you go back to that meme that you had, you could see the analog clock in there, but it wasn't no Breitling.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so I figured this is one of those separating factors. It's like, hey, me and my buddies, or my neighbor and I, we both have Bentegas, but
I've got
the
the
Flex.
extra option, the watch option, analog clock.
Yeah, exactly, and especially of that caliber.
Go back to that face photo one more time. It's pretty clean looking.
Yeah, I mean,
You can see the open heart, if you want to call it that. Beautiful.
Yeah, and then the color scheme is all, I mean, not monotone, but it's tonal, you know, and of course you got the flourish or the little diamond hour markers
And
there.
it's kind of hard to see from this screen, but it's almost like a pearly dial.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I can see
Adding
some
a hint more of
variation
that
there.
luxurious feel there.
Yeah.
Pretty cool. That was my second one. What's
Okay.
next?
All right, so I think, oh yeah.
Am I got another one?
Yep, here's your third one.
All right, so this is a 1979 Lincoln Continental Mark V. It's a pretty baller vehicle. I mean, these things back in the day, they were smooth, okay? They were long, they were big, they were kind of luxurious, man. I wish I could have ridden in one, but this one, there we go. This is actually one I dislike.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm not a fan. Talk about grandfather clocks with the elongated, hands and stuff. Well, guess what? They put the dang turn signals right in the middle of the watch face, so it kind of takes away from the design. I don't really like it. You do get some heavy-duty upscale Roman numerals and the right turn signals built into it, which is just kind of ugly. It just isn't pretty, man. It could have been cool, but with the turn signals, just kills it. Totally kills the vibe. But I mean, I love what could have been, with the wood grain that you're getting. I mean, that could be really cool looking, but just wasn't executed very well in this vehicle, which is a bummer.
Yeah, that's something that can kind of hurt the aesthetics of these is the packaging. And obviously they've got limited real estate, but I understand what you mean because it's like, okay, like this, especially an analog clock with the Roman numerals, like that should be, you would think, like, to have the full effect, it should just have its own spot, untouched by anything else, but
Yes.
they cram those in there.
They're like, let's upsize it, and then let's put it in a place that doesn't work. So, sorry.
Yeah, it's less than ideal. I get what you're saying there, yeah.
The thought was there.
Yeah, and that's I had a similar issue with my least favorite on my list. But before we get to that, we'll go to we'll start this on a lighter note. So this is actually a car that we had on AutoHunter a year or two ago. This is a 1949 Packard station sedan. Which is kind of trippy because you always hear station wagon, but this was a station sedan. And, just to me, this is such a great looking car. You got the big white walls, you've got the nice green paint, the wood siding and everything. You got that giant cormorant hood ornament right there. And of course, plenty of chrome. And then on the inside, I just love the color scheme here. You just got these kind of muted sort of, earth tones, right? And just an attractive gauge cluster. And the clock benefits from that. The design, the font or typeface, whatever you call it. And then the color scheme. And then, just the nice big round dials. And it has its own spot. Just an attractive car
Very
inside
attractive.
and out.
It blends perfectly. For a second, I was like, wait, which one's the clock there? And it looks so good.
Yeah, and it's to me, it's not flashy, but it stands out, which I think is, I mean, anything can be flashy, but if something can be distinctive and low key at the same time, I think that's harder to execute, and they certainly did that with this. Let's see. Now, next on the list, this car is definitely not understated. And this is another car that we sold on AutoHunter.
Okay.
This is a 59 Cadillac Series 62 convertible. Unfortunately, the resolution, when it's stretched, it didn't come out to be all that clear. But you can see the basics there. Plenty of chrome, big bodied car, white walls. You got the fins.
Long boy.
Yeah. And this one is what attracted me to the clock in this car. I think it's what attracted you to the one in the Bel Air. So I wish there's a better picture of it. But to me, there's a logic that should be put into practice with the analog clock in particular, right? So, obviously the gauges and everything, you want those front and center. You want them close to the driver's eye line, like as close to the road or the bottom of the windshield as possible, because you want to be able to check them quickly and accurately at speed, right? Now, back then, late 50s, digital clock was, maybe a few cars had it. I don't know. But, I would say the majority of cars that had clocks in them, it was analog, right? So the same idea, and this was before even digital watches, So it's the same idea. You're going to check the time. It's important. You want it as close to your line of sight as possible so you don't have to take your eyes off the road for that long. And not only do you have this great design here, it looks period correct. It's jazzed up a little bit, but not too flashy, but not too plain. It fits the aesthetics of the car, but it has its own real estate, high mounted.
Yeah.
So it's the design, but also the location of it. It's just a great combination.
Definitely. And like you were saying, it's very similar to the Bel Air because they match the aesthetic of the vehicle, which is awesome. It's perfect. One could say refined.
Yeah, and unfortunately, you see that lack of thought in certain infotainment touchscreens in vehicles now, where it just looks like they took a tablet from Best Buy and plunked it in the middle of the dash.
Tell me about it. The refinedness, the thoughtfulness that once was is no longer.
Yeah, in certain cases, unfortunately.
Except for Genesis. I'm just going to say that.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like, I was thinking about it this morning, like, there's that saying, it's better to have loved and lost than to have never loved at all, right? And to me, I think just as a person, like in a relationship and it applies in this case, I think it's better to never have been a thought than to have been an afterthought. Because you can just see certain things, like in cars, certain features, it's like, oh, this was an afterthought. Like they just planted it somewhere and that's it.
Yeah.
It's a bummer. Which brings me to the last car on my list. This is I think just a kind of poor integration. So several years ago, I had the good fortune to drive, I think within the same year, the 2019 Mercedes-AMG E63S sedan and wagon.
Cool.
Great looking cars, nice sound, plenty of power, and attractive interiors. They were flashy, modern. When you had the ambient lighting rocking at night, it could kind of look a little Vegas-y, nightclubby, which is cool in its own way.
Right there.
Yeah, these cars had a lot going for them. They also had an analog clock, but that brings me to my issue with these. So you have the digital gauges right there, obviously the big infotainment screen, the HVAC vents, nice.
I see it.
And then you've got the HVAC controls, and then they nest this tiny little analog clock even further down between these rows of buttons. And it's the exact opposite of what happened with the Cadillac. Now, granted, obviously they didn't have big screens back then, so these eat up a certain amount of real estate. But here's my thing. Okay.
Be like Porsche and put it on the dash.
Yeah, you could do that. Or, better yet, to me, in this case, just don't put it in at all. Because it's not only small, but it is so far down here. It's like, who, honestly, granted, you have a digital clock up here, so that's going to be easiest and quickest to read anyway. But it's like, if you're going to do this at all.
Afterthought.
Yeah.
Just like you said.
Yeah, it's just, it's the placement and the size. It's just.
And it's a bummer.
Why even do it?
Because it's a pretty attractive looking watch or clock. I had a C300. It was a 2015. It had the exact same placement, exact same clock and everything. And you're right. It did feel like an afterthought. I think it's pretty unattractive to be encased in all those buttons right there in a place where you're never really going to be looking.
No, not at all.
Unless you're getting a drink from the cup holder.
Yeah. Or I could see you would accidentally check the time.
Yeah.
Like if you're parked somewhere, let's say, you're waiting on your girlfriend, you're picking her up somewhere and you're sitting there and let's say you got a soft drink from Sonic or whatever. And you get it out and you're drinking it and you just happen to look there. It's like, oh, I know what time it is.
Exactly.
But if you wanted to check that specifically, it's in the worst place possible.
100%. It's a cool little feature, but it had the potential to be that is gorgeous,
Yeah, and if I remember correctly, I think this was an IWC clock, like from the watchmaker. And yeah, it just completely goes to waste here. Yeah. But on a lighter note, we will be more positive when we talk about our favorite cars that are currently on AutoHunter.com right now. Let's see. So if I can get over there. Let's do this. There we go. All right. So you are first up with yours, Luke.
Okay, I feel like I talk about CUDAs every time I'm on the podcast, but we just happen to have fantastic cars on AutoHunter this week. Starting off with this gorgeous 1970 Plymouth CUDA. It started its life as a 383 CUDA from the factory, but received a Hemi 426 engine in there. Beautiful. It's got the power. So it went through an inside and out mechanical and cosmetic restoration in 2022. So it's pretty recent.
Yeah.
And it receives power from a period correct Hemi 426. It's connected to a 4-speed manual transmission and a Dana rear end. It's finished in rally red over a black vinyl interior. This CUDA is now offered with a clear title.
Nice.
So yeah, this thing is pretty cool. You got the hood scoops, the accent graphics, the rally wheels, power steering, pistol grip shifter, all of the above, man.
That's a nice package.
Yeah. True mileage, obviously unknown because it does have the engine replacement on it, but it's phenomenal condition after that restoration. Looks brand new.
Oh yeah, nice, fresh.
This thing ends, correct. This thing ends on the 20th, which is, I believe, Monday or Tuesday. The 20th, which I wish I knew what day that was. I think it's Monday. And current bid is $29,000, guys. So go get this while you can because it's going to be a great price. Let's go into the next one.
Yeah, let's do it, man. So next up on your list, you've got, okay, so we're switching off here. So first one on my list is a 1963 Buick Riviera. And what got me about this car, it's white, which is typically like a pleasant, light, airy color, but even in that color with these lines, the lines of this car, it still has this kind of menacing presence to it. Like it almost has that kind of like hitman or like dangerous dude kind of vibe to it, even in this very lighthearted color.
John Wick's cousin.
Something like that. Yeah. I mean, it has a menace. It has a presence to it. But then when you look at it just aesthetically, it's white over this brown leather interior. The seats have held up pretty well. And then you got all these conveniences, AC, power brakes, power steering, power windows too, I think. And then under the hood, now Diego, our other co-host, he educated me on this because, as you know, he's very well versed in these old GM cars.
Everything.
Yeah. So one thing I learned from him, so they call this engine the Wildcat 445, but the displacement is 401 cubic inches. Now, do you know why they call it the 445?
Why is that?
I didn't know at one point, and Diego filled me in. It is based on the torque rating of the engine.
Interesting.
Yeah, because along those lines, I would have thought they would base it on the horsepower.
I was thinking the same.
Yeah, but yeah, 445 pound-feet of torque from the factory.
Pretty impressive. What year is it? 1963. 63.
Yeah, so
that's
first
pretty dang impressive.
Yeah, I mean it's healthy. It's healthy.
And it's good looking too.
Oh, absolutely.
That thing looks so clean.
Yeah, they didn't tart it up or anything, nope. Like it's just clean, simple. Now this one, I want to make sure I get this right for everybody out there because if they are interested in getting this, so this one can be yours. You just got to place the right bid. In time, this car ends on Tuesday, May 21st. So you were right. The 20th is a Monday.
Perfect. Okay. It got me worked up for a second. I was like, I forgot to check the dates.
Yeah, so you've got time to bid on Luke's pick. You got time to bid on mine. So
We got more, though. We got a few more.
yes. So next up is yours.
Another gorgeous piece of American engineering. Beautiful 68 Pontiac GTO convertible, powered by a replacement 400 cubic inch V8 backed by a TH400 3-speed automatic transmission. It's finished in Starlight Black, and it's equipped with a black vinyl power convertible top, which covers a black vinyl interior. This Pontiac GTO comes from the seller dealer, again with a clean title. It has an Endura front bumper, power steering, vintage lock, Hurst dual gate transmission shifter, bucket seats, a lot of amenities. Now, there is just one main flaw to keep in mind, is that the air conditioning does not work. A little bit of a bummer, but a very beautiful car nonetheless. Odometer shows 22,000 miles on this new engine, true mileage unknown.
Well, plenty to be put on it by the fortunate next owner. And talk about menacing. Yeah, the triple black and a GTO. Yeah, man, that is automatic cool points right there.
100%. And this thing ends also on Tuesday, the 21st at 12 p.m. PDT. Starting bid right now is $16,400. So, guys, get it while you can. Go bid right now.
Yeah.
That's my second pick there.
Nice. Yeah, that's a sexy beast. I don't use that term, but it definitely applies. I mean, sleek, low, it's got a bad boy look to it.
Yeah, and they didn't go overboard making the wheels black, putting on anything aftermarket to make it look a little more modern. I think it looks fantastic the way it is now.
Yeah, I think sidewall is underrated in that, like, you see certain older cars and they upsize the wheels and then they go with the real low profile tires. In certain cars, that looks fine, like particularly modern cars, obviously, because that's the style. But these older cars, like, it's nice to have a substantial sidewall to the tire. I mean, it just makes the look of the car.
100%, especially with those rally wheels.
Yeah, it's an easy thing to goof, and it's like, well, they already had it right. There's a reason why these cars are visually iconic, why they had such a following, because they had it right from the start, All right.
They don't make them like they used to.
That is true to a certain extent, absolutely. And along those lines, I've got another old school pick. This is a 65 Thunderbird. And, we get a lot of great looking cars on the site, a lot of very appealing cars, but every now and then I come across one, and this is one of them, where I instantly think, if I had a bankroll that could choke a hippo, I would get this car. And this has got so much going for it too. I mean, just the color, it's just this nice soft blue. Now, this used to be Brittany blue. It got changed to, I think the dealer says it's light blue metallic, but this is such a great looking generation of the Thunderbird. And then you throw on that color, you get the hood scoop, all the chrome and everything. And then you've got this...
oh, my goodness.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I can't say it's a matching interior, but it's close. It's tonal.
It looks beautiful.
Yeah, it's just got this softness to it. Like, I can see, I could see my taking my wife out in this.
Yeah.
It's just leisurely, laid back. Like
Sunday car.
Yeah, Sunday car, going by the water, the coast. I think this would be... it just has that look to it. And then, it's just everywhere you look, it's nice and clean. It seems like it's been well cared for,
unbelievable
paint,
looking.
Everything. Yeah.
God, that is so sleek. I love the chairs, the seats in there. I like how they're contoured. They're like downturned. They look very comfortable. The color is beautiful.
Oh, absolutely.
That is a nice looking vehicle.
Yeah, and this one's got a lot of nice features on it in addition to just the aesthetics. So so power windows, power locks. It's got the swing away steering column, power steering to go with that. And then under the hood, you've got the 390 4-barrel, and then you got the Cruise-O-Matic 3-speed hooked up to that.
Cool.
So for those of you out there that are interested in adding this car to your garage and taking it for a cruise, you have until Monday, May 20th to put in your bids.
Right on.
All right. Well, Luke, we've reached the end of another episode of Drive the Bid. So I think as we usually do, we covered a lot. So we brought news of the 2024 Silverado EV. We put out some more memes into the world. Hopefully, y'all find them entertaining.
I hope you liked them.
Be kind. And then, of course, new topics. So us being car and watch guys, we had to go there with the
That's right.
car clocks. And then, of course, repping AutoHunter, sharing our favorite picks that are currently on the site right now.
I wish I was wearing my AutoHunter shirt because I totally rip it open right now and say AutoHunter.
Well, we could fix it in post, right, Dustin?
Right. He's like, no more work for me.
I'm done. So I'd like to thank you all for watching Drive the Bid. The Drive the Bid podcast brought to you by AutoHunter.com. We hope to see you next week. In the meantime, go ahead and check out the cars on AutoHunter.com and ClassicCars.com. And if you haven't already, please go ahead and like this video and subscribe to the AutoHunter Cinema YouTube channel that this video is on if you haven't already. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, guys.